Hello and welcome to this week's edition of the CertiK Security Leaderboard Showcase. My name is Jesse. I'm your host for this series. As you all know, in this showcase, I host a project for a live AMA where we discuss their work with CertiK, the Security Leaderboard, and we throw in some questions submitted from you, the viewers. Our goal is to raise the level of security and transparency across the entire Web3 ecosystem. The Security Leaderboard, found at CertiK.com, is a free tool to help you safely navigate the blockchain world. It's one of the many tools available in the CertiK security suite that secures the Web3 world. Today's featured project is Aptos, which recently underwent multiple audits by CertiK. Let's take a look at the video we've prepared for this.
Aptos is a Layer 1 blockchain created for safe development and built with user experience as a core focus. Auditing is a complicated and essential step in the security process. At CertiK, we review the top DeFi projects to help you better understand the findings from our experts. This audit covers Aptos' core move depths. The summary describes the audit and the types of analyses used. Overview shows the programming language, the blockchain used, and a link to the project's codebase. The vulnerability summary lists issues that need resolution. Audit scope displays which contracts were audited. Findings highlight all issues and ranks them in terms of severity from critical to discussion. In this audit, we found 2 critical, 0 major, 0 medium, 2 minor, and 1 informational issues. Aptos has resolved 3 of the 5 issues. Visit CertiK.com for the full report.
You can find that audit report and all the other ones we've done at CertiK.com. So today we've got Wolfgang and Joshua from Aptos Labs here to tell us some more about the project. Thanks for coming on the show, guys.
Thanks for having us.
Good to have you. So can you tell us a little bit about Aptos? What is this new Layer 1 blockchain? What are you solving? What problems are you solving with Aptos, and why build a new blockchain rather than work on an existing one?
Sure. I mean, so I guess I can maybe start. I'm sure Wolfgang will have some thoughts afterwards as well. I guess a lot of the folks who know the background around Aptos know that it was somewhat born out of EM and the old Libra days. Facebook and Meta had this big vision of saying, hey, can we bring blockchain technology to the world, right? And we're not just talking about millions of users, we're talking about billions, And so when everybody kind of sat down and looked at this problem, they thought, well, you look at the existing solutions, and there's a lot of good solutions out there, but none of them are perfect, right? And none of them seem to have been able to scale. So, the use case of billions of users, none of them have the security requirements that you would imagine for a global blockchain. And so when Aptos was kind of born out of that vision, I mean, we effectively made the same observations. You look at the current ecosystem and you see that, look, there's nothing quite out there that meets the use cases of everybody. And there's also a bunch of other technical reasons as well, right, which we might be able to get into later on. But you kind of look at a lot of the different blockchains, a lot of the different design decisions that folks have made, and you realize, look, some folks have, in our opinion, have over pivoted in terms of, performance, but they've thrown security to the wayside, or some are way too, focused on decentralization as a whole. But then all of a sudden the user experience has gone, been thrown by the wayside. And so we kind of looked at a bunch of these different things and we realized, look, the only real path forward here is for us to effectively, bite the bullet and sit down and try to design something that we think, will be able to scale, will be able to evolve, and be able to meet the needs of billions of people.
Right. Yeah. Building your own blockchain from scratch essentially allows you to take your own approach to the blockchain trilemma of security, decentralization, and scalability, rather than trying to tinker with someone else's choices that have already been implemented, I guess.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, and we've kind of seen this as well. You look back at the blockchain ecosystem, 5 years ago, you see there's a lot of debates. All these different chains have their different forks because someone wants a bigger block size, or somebody needs this feature, but the core team doesn't want to develop it, right? You realize very quickly, like, hey, this is not the world that you want to be in. And I'm sure Move, like Wolfgang will be able to talk about this a little bit more as well, but Move was a big part of that, right? Kind of designing their own smart contract language, because you look at the mistakes that were being made by other blockchains and effectively saying, hey, we can't allow users to shoot themselves in the foot so badly. Right? There's a lot of security vulnerabilities.
Right. So what are the benefits of using Move, which was originally developed at DM, as you said, over Solidity, which is used by Ethereum and other smart contract languages?
I mean,
so I think that there are really many things which are advantage if you use move. So let me try to nail down the most important one. So the type system of move is more advanced than in Solidity, I would say. If you know a little bit of home languages, types and typing is about safety. So if you have, for example, generic types in move, which Solidity doesn't have. But there are also like many other things. For example, it's well known in Solidity, the re-entrancy problem has been exploited in many hacks, and a lot of assets have been lost because of this design in Solidity. This kind of thing is just one example which we have avoided from the very beginning when designing Move. So Move is a little bit oriented towards Rust. So if you know Rust, then it already has this kind of parent, is already a security-centric language. So Rust has the same properties for the system programming. The difference between Rust and Move is that Move is way simpler. It's intended for smart contract programming, not for system driver or system programming. So which is, I think, important. So Rust is not really the language you want to put out in the smart contract in the Web3 programming world. You need something better than that. Yeah. So basically, the type system, avoiding mistakes like the re-entrancy and modular encapsulation, like the way how we deal with storage, scarcity of the data in the storage system. All these are aspects, I think, which make Move better.
So Move has a second mover advantage in a way, because you get to look at some of the mistakes of Solidity and avoid those from the ground up, like re-entrancy bugs, which have been exploited for hundreds of millions of dollars.
Yeah, so it's not like we would have been way smarter than the Solidity people, just like you said. So we had the chance to look at the mistakes which other people did. We had that chance when we worked at this back at Meta. So I wouldn't say it's very common that a startup, a blockchain startup, would create a new language. But back at Meta, the resources and the time frame were available to do that, and so it was done. Another important aspect, I think, if you talk about the advantage of Move, is you go on the bytecode level, on the virtual machine and the bytecode level, called EVM for Ethereum and Solidity. So the Move bytecode is on a way higher level of abstraction than the EVM bytecode. When I talked about typing before, all the type information, the logical types which are in your smart contract are still available to the Move VM when the bytecode is executed. That is not the case for the EVM. And the EVM instruction is more like, let's say, traditional processor, like an x86 processor instruction set. But the Move EVM is more high level. It's more like Java bytecode. So it means the bytecode can be verified. When we load the bytecode at execution time, we actually type check it again. And we basically check the original logical structure of the program and its declaration and metadating is correct, basically at execution time, which you can't do in EVM. So that's, I think, another angel of the advantage. So it's not just the language like you see it, but it's also the execution underlying environment, the Move virtual machine, which gives you this additional safety.
Right, and that brings us to our next topic, which is formal verification. So CertiK has pioneered formal verification in smart contract auditing, and Move includes its own formal verification, the Move Prover. So how do you leverage the Move Prover to formally verify contracts on Aptos? What does this mean, and what benefits does it provide?
Yeah. So the Move Prover, I don't know whether everybody here knows what formal verification is. I can try to give like an elevator pitch or so. It's basically you're writing down in a particular language, which is called a specification language, which is similar like the program language, but a little bit different. Properties your program must hold. For example, you can write down an invariant that the sum of all the coins in the system must be the total supply or so on. So if you lose a coin somewhere, then this invariant would be violated. And so this kind of specifications which you have written down they are formally verified. That's what's called formal verification by a tool. And formal verification means it's like a mathematical proof. Like you do a proof back in school or so. Now the tool, the computer does a proof for you. And if it succeeds, you have really 100% guarantee. It's not like a test where you have 80% test coverage, 85% test coverage. In this case of formal verification, you really have 100% correctness of the property you have been asking for. So this technique of formal verification has been used heavily in safety critical systems like avionics. It's also, interestingly enough, used by Intel and other processor companies on the hardware level, simply because if they have a bug in their next processor design, it costs a lot of money to fix this bug. So they want to be really sure there are no bugs. And this kind of thing, like high assurance systems, like the next processor design or the airplane in the sky or so, they have quite similarities with smart contracts, right? So like large assets are at stake, and safety or money-wise. And therefore, formal verification is also important for smart contracts. It's not that we would be the first one we are doing it. Like you said, CertiK is looking at that. Zetora, the company out there, looking at that, and other companies. We have built formal verification from the very beginning into the Move language. It's supported on the level of the language. What we are doing with it, that was the original question. We are not yet at that point in Aptos, but we are very close to it. So our intention is to really formally specify all of the Aptos framework, every single code which we ship, including things like staking and this kind of things which we implement and Move, and verify they are correct. And we also intend to give this tool to auditors and to our users. But it has to be clearly said, I mean, this kind of technology is not necessarily mainstream yet. So it's a more like a specialist technology, and there are still things which we need to fix. Also for Aptos, we are not ready yet. For DM, we have been able to specify the entire DM and verify the entire DM framework, which was many years of effort put into this.
Right. So formal verification provides like mathematical proof that the code functions as intended, as correctly as it can. Right. Which is a great reassurance when you've got smart contracts that control hundreds of millions or even billions of dollars. We've seen a lot of exploits that could be avoided by this sort of like rigorous checking.
Sorry, Jesse, Wolfgang did a very good job of explaining that, but it's exactly what you said, right? When you think about smart contracts, you think about, like you just said, we've got something holding millions or billions of dollars worth of some token, whatever it is, right? You need that critical guarantee that, hey, regardless of how I've implemented this or how I'm going to modify it in the future, let's say there's a feature request or something, you need those guarantees of being able to specify, hey, like no one can come in and steal stake. No one can come in and create stake out of thin air, right? And so it's that kind of stuff where like you say, right, it's critical. This is the stuff that they use on airplanes and all sorts of, nuclear systems, if you will, to make sure that nothing's going to go wrong, right? And it's the exact same principle. We're trying to say, hey, we need to bring this to the blockchain and we need to integrate it from the ground, right? You can't add this stuff on afterwards. It's super difficult. So let's think about security from the get-go.
Right. No, it's great to see really the integration of secure practices into the development cycle from step one, basically. So I know Aptos Labs also offers a bug bounty program, which is so how do bug bounties combine with these pre-deployment, auditing, formal verification to provide another layer of security post-deployment?
Yeah, I mean, I can probably jump on some of this. So I know, we've spent a lot of time, at DM and at Aptos specifically thinking about security, right? And a lot of the team is very agreed that, hey, you have to design a system thinking about security from day one, right? You can never bolt it on afterwards, especially when you operate in these untrusted environments, right? Blockchains are meant to be decentralized. They're meant to be trustless. You don't need to be able to trust the person that you're interacting with. You need to trust the system and what it's doing, that regardless of the malicious actor or somebody doing something, to steal money, because people will do it, right? If the opportunity is there, people will take it. And so you have to think about this stuff from day one. And what we very, very quickly realized is that as good as a blockchain team might be, as good as a core developer team might be, you need security experts to come in and look at your code from a fresh perspective, fresh set of eyes, right? Because as much as you love your own code and you build out these beautiful blockchains and optimizations and performance, there's things that you take as an assumption, right? You take for granted all sorts of things. And so sometimes you need third-party auditors to come in and say, look, we're going to look at your code for the first time, we're going to understand it, and we're going to attack it. And the benefit of using third-party auditors is that they have experience, right? So straight from the beginning, they know what they're looking for. They know the kinds of attacks that have worked in different blockchains, Ethereum, Bitcoin, decentralized networks, whatever it is. So they know very, very clearly what they're looking for. And the second thing is that they have freshness, right? They can kind of look at your code and they can say, okay, what happens if I change some of the assumptions or I modify something, right? And so you need that different perspective. And the same goes for bug bounties. I mean, so I'm sure Wolfgang will be able to expound on this, but we've had some great bugs found through the bug bounty program. I mean, we're talking, millions of dollars have been paid out for people who have found very specific bugs in all sorts of the move VM, language implementation, verification and stuff. And without, their contributions, you don't want to be running a network that has a bug in one of the most critical components, right? And so at Aptos, we've tried to leverage both of those different areas to effectively say, hey, how can we make our blockchain as secure as possible?
For sure. Yeah. Wolfgang, if you have anything to add about any specific vulnerabilities, this is a security show. So
I mean, also I like this, the way how you put this question. So indeed, we would prefer it if the auditing before deployment would find the bugs instead of via the bounty program. No? But nothing is perfect. So also auditing isn't perfect. So you need, in our experience, both of those things. And there is a particular category of bugs which auditing has a real hard time to find, which is basically tool-based, which is cache bugs, how we call it. No? So you can, and those bugs are basically found by fuzzers. And the fuzzer technology has been quite advanced. So I can give you a very quick idea of what's happening. So there is, the bytecode, a module or a move module in the form of bytecode is input to our move VM and will be executed there. And as you can imagine, the bytecode itself is a very, very complex data type, because it basically represents your program. And then there is a lot of happening in the VM. The bytecode is verified, like the type checking I meant, and so on, and finally executed. And this is all very complex code. And there can be, like, when you think about Rust, there can be an unpack, or there can be basically some crash or arithmetic overflow, which has been overseen. And the fuzzer now is a technology which automatically millions of this bytecode programs generates and fires them against this VM and sees whether it can crash the VM. And that is what whiteheads, or we call them, in the bug bounty program, in the majority doing. So the majority of the cases of the bug set we had were crash bugs which are generated by fuzzers. And it's really hard to read them, to see them with auditing. So I think this is something which I can tell anybody who has the security demand. So what we're doing because of this now is we not only do the auditing with CertiK and AutoSec and other companies, we're also pushing for running our own fuzzers because we want to be, as fast as the whiteheads out there. No? So we want to be as good as the whiteheads and find the bugs earlier than them. Particularly, we don't want then a black hat. A black hat would be basically the same guy finds the same bug, but instead of telling us in the bounty program, really attacking us and
exploiting it for as much as they can. Right. Yeah. Security is an investment, and paying out a $1 million bounty to avoid a $100 million hack is a no-brainer, basically. So Aptos launched a couple months ago, successful launch. And what's coming next for the blockchain? What do you have on the horizon?
Yeah, I mean, so from our perspective, the launch was just the beginning, right? The launch was the start of the journey, not the end of it. And we have a ton of improvements, optimizations, all sorts of things that we want to try to push out to the community as fast as possible, right? One of the things that we believe at Aptos, a core value is that our blockchain technology needs to be able to scale and develop as the rest of computing technology does, right? You can't sit in a world where like, oh, you've built your little blockchain and now your job is to just keep it online and run it. That's not how the world works, right? You have to make improvements. You've got to make things faster, lower latencies, higher throughputs. You've got to add security, as we've been talking about already with all these different efforts. And I know, at least from the blockchain core side, so, I'm one of the engineers on the blockchain core specifically. There's a lot of optimizations that we're looking at where we can say, hey, like, we're doing tens of thousands of transactions. We want to go hundreds of thousands of transactions, right? We want to make latency as small as possible. The current latencies that we're seeing in Aptos today are less than a second, in the average case. And we want to say, well, can we reduce it even further? Hundreds of milliseconds. So that's the one side on the blockchain core. But the other side that we're very focused on is the ecosystem side, right? We realize that for a lot of people, Move is a new programming language, right? There's not a lot of adoption yet. It's still very early days. And so we're trying to work as much as we can with the ecosystem to effectively grow the ecosystem out, empower users to say, hey, come look at Move, look at all the things that you can do. Look at the technology, look how powerful it is, look how much easier it is to program your smart contracts. And so like our ecosystem development is a big goal. And a very simple use case within the ecosystem is gaming. We've seen in the last few years, blockchain technology can be a real game changer for games, right? And I know Aptos has signed a bunch of partnerships, and you can go and read about them online with NPixel and so forth. But blockchains aren't quite there yet to meet the demands of games. And this is one of the things that we love at Aptos is we're saying, no, we're there. And we're going to keep going, right? And so, like for us, mainnet launch was just the beginning. I don't know, Wolfgang, if you have any additional thoughts there, but
yeah, I mean, I can just add also from the language side and the tooling and the developer experience around writing smart contracts, we still have a lot to do. So the Move language is relatively new. And it's a great language, and we have great tools. But as you can imagine, you can always do things better and better. And we intend to do that at Aptos together with the Move community. So that means improving or adding features to the language which people are asking for, and improving the tool chain, adding new tools. The Move Prover is one tool, but you can also imagine other tools like a linter or something which will find problems. So there is a lot more to do, IDE integration, but then also documentation. And I'm very glad to see some of, for example, CertiK has written, I think at least 2 blogs, if not 3, about Move. And so this kind of thing we need, but also answers on Stack Overflow, all the things which people are used to if they use a programming language is a lot of work to do for us there. And we are very committed and investing strongly into this area.
Yeah, I think our engineers have actually really enjoyed working with Move and auditing Aptos and participating in capture the flag competitions. They put out a blog where they used Chat GPT to summarize and see how well that could apply to auditing, which I don't think it's taking anyone's job just yet, but it's a powerful tool. So Aptos, as you mentioned, Aptos is publishing a whole lot of like cutting edge research on blockchain technology, and the Move white paper is actually a great read for anyone who's interested. How does this sort of research inform the development of Aptos?
Yeah, I mean,
I think, okay.
No, you go.
I think there are 2 lines of it.
Yeah, I mean, I guess from my perspective, I would say at least from the blockchain side, right? This is one of the things that I absolutely love at Aptos is when you go into the office, you see the engineers are sitting right next to the researchers, right? We're integrated, and as a benefit of this is what you see is that a lot of when you look at other companies, right? A lot of the companies, at least that I've been in, engineers and researchers are very separate, right? They operate in separate worlds. The researchers come along in their little bubble and they make up all these crazy cool ideas. But this never is seen by the users, is never implemented or built. And at Aptos, we're trying to undo that. We're effectively saying, look, the engineers come up with amazing, like practical implementations, and the researchers come up with amazing ideas. And sometimes it's a little bit of both. Great researchers also know how to code, and great engineers also know how to optimize and build ideas. And so at Aptos, we're trying to integrate these 2 things as much as possible. And I mean, there's 2 obvious examples that stand out immediately. So I don't know if folks are aware with, the blocked STM parallel execution work at Aptos. I mean, this is an idea that was born out of research. Our researchers were effectively saying, look, the blockchains are bottlenecked by executing transactions. How can we undo this? One way we can undo it is we can execute everything in parallel. And not only that, but we can do it in a way that doesn't require users to, have to front load their transactions with all the static analysis and all this read-write sets and locks. What is the easiest way for the user to submit a transaction and our system to automatically parallel execute everything and come out with a perfect result as if it was sequentially executed, but it takes much less time. And Block STM is a great example of that, right? It was researching purely that bore out of one of these ideas. And the researchers and the engineers sat down and said, let's make it happen. And now you see there's other chains that have also used this. Polygon is a good example. They've recently integrated Block STM into their blockchain. And so there's a bunch of ongoing efforts at Aptos, huge research ideas where we're effectively saying, look, this can change the game for blockchain technology. Not only do we want to research it and publish good papers at high tier conferences, but we also want to build it so that users can actually use this technology.
Right, really applying the lessons learned in research to engineering and how to bring those to users. That's great to hear.
And bring that back to the research community. So just to mention, we have 2 best paper awards just in this year. So one best paper award is for our Block STM and for our blockchain and protocol technology. The other best paper award for the ETAPS conference in April of beginning of this year is for the Move Pool one. So we are publishing and we are talking with academics, and or we even working together with academics. We also have projects going on with universities on working of aspects on the larger protocol consensus blockchain and the language smart contract side.
Well, congratulations on those best paper awards. I'll have to check those out. We've got a question from the audience who touching on what you said about bringing developers to the ecosystem. So how does Aptos incentivize developers to move on over to Move? And is there a software development kit that's available to developers?
Yeah, so I mean, at least as I'm aware today, we have a bunch of SDKs that are out there, right? So if you go to like aptos.dev, for example, you'll find the main site for our documentation. And as part of that, I think there's at least a couple different SDKs. One is TypeScript, one is Rust, one is Python. And so what we're trying to do is garner feedback from the community, right? We realize that decentralized environments are best when everybody's contributing, everybody's bringing their ideas and stuff. And so from the Aptos perspective, we're effectively saying, look, we want to start building on these SDKs and documentation and tutorials and all that kind of stuff, but there's only so much that we can do, right? And so one of the things that we're trying to do is be very open sourced, right? You can see all of our code is online. You can see we have AIPs, which are Aptos improvement proposals, where users can come along and effectively say, look, I propose an improvement to your SDK, or I want to add all this functionality. And so that's one way we're trying to effectively allow the community to start just inputting, right? Building on top of us, giving us feedback and ideas and all that stuff. And in terms of incentivization, I know there's also a number of efforts that Aptos is taking. Like one of those, for example, is community grants. Right, we have a grants program where people with good ideas or teams, who want to build on Aptos or build really, really cool new decentralized exchanges, DeFi, high performance trading, all that kind of stuff, can submit proposals to us. And out of this grant, Aptos will be able to give them some money to fund them for a year or two or whatever it is, right? And so we're still actively working on these incentivization techniques. Another one that was recently done was, we have these incentivized testnets. People can apply to run nodes on the next version, if you will, of Aptos and be incentivized and paid for that. So this is something that we're definitely starting to think about more. But what I would say is if folks have ideas, if community members have ideas about improvements, about changes in the code, about things that they would love to see from the business side or the marketing side, or even just the funding side, let us know. Get in touch, right? We're always listening. And so there's a lot of opportunity here for input.
That's great to hear that you're staying true to the one of the foundational goals of blockchain technology, which is decentralization, community involvement, and you've taken steps to achieve that. So we're nearly out of time, but I just wanted to touch on, before we have to finish up, why did you go with CertiK to audit, I think, 7 of your smart contracts, Aptos Core and other foundational ecosystem contracts?
Sure. I mean, so I know I can't speak for others, but I think, I was involved in some of the early calls with CertiK, and there were a couple of things that stood out for me. One was their professionalism, right? You go to the CertiK website and you realize, hey, you've got a lot of experience in auditing stuff. You're very good at technically writing down your findings, recommendations, documenting everything, providing transparency for the community, right? People can go onto your website and figure out what have you audited, what have you found, and how good a job have you done, right? So that was one aspect. And the second aspect was that we just loved working with your engineers and your auditors and stuff. It was super great to get feedback on a continual daily basis, right? Hey, we found something here. What do you think about this? Or can we discuss this? Why does this work this way? And so those are the two big things that kind of stood out to me. Wolfgang, I'm not sure if there was anything else that you thought.
Yeah, I mean, it was also simply the case that you guys were open to work with Move. When we started this auditing, we were basically the first company ever trying to audit Move code. And as you know, so like it's an investment also for an auditing company to ramp up on a particular technology, in this case, the Move stack. And you guys were available and you were agile enough to basically jump into this and work with us. So I think this was a very important reason. So if I remember correctly, we talked with multiple companies and we were really impressed by what CertiK had to offer and how open they were to embrace this new technology.
Right. Yeah, I don't think we've ever turned down a new challenge of working with a new programming language. So it is an investment, but now we're ready to audit Move projects well into the future. So, well, thank you, Joshua and Wolfgang, for coming on. This has been a great discussion. I learned a lot about type safety and all sorts of security aspects relating to Move. So are there where can people find more about Aptos, get involved? You said aptos.dev is one site.
Yeah, Aptos.dev is our documentation site. Aptos Labs as well. You know, we've got GitHub presence. We've got all sorts of stuff, right? AIPs. Discord is a big one. We're also on Twitter, various different social media platforms.
But for a quick overview, I recommend to look at our Medium blogs. We have recently pushed out 2 blogs. One is about why Aptos, which gives you an overview of the key reasons, and the other one is actually about what we're discussing here today, about security, bounty program, and this kind of thing. So, yep.
And we've got a couple of blogs on our website about the Move Prover and Move Capture the Flag competition. So lots of resources out there for anyone to learn more and get involved. Well, thank you guys. Look forward to seeing Aptos in the future and working with you again.
Yeah, thank you so much. It's been really, really fun.